All right, let's talk about one of the biggest head-scratchers in the energy world right now, China. It's a country that, depending on the day, looks like it's either single-handedly saving the planet or dooming it. The answer to this whole paradox, it turns out, isn't as simple as swapping coal for batteries. It's way more strategic and, frankly, way more interesting.
So here's the central question, right? How on earth can China be building a record number of new coal plants while at the exact same time absolutely shattering every record for installing solar farms? I mean, it seems like a total contradiction. But what if it's not a contradiction at all? What if it's a plan?
I mean, just look at the raw numbers. On one hand, you've got 94.5 gigawatts of new coal projects getting the green light just this year. That's the highest it's been since 2015. But on the other hand, China just blew past a massive milestone, the first country ever with over 1,000 gigawatts of installed solar. So, what's the real story? Well, to figure that out, you have to understand the master plan.
Okay, so the key to cracking this whole puzzle is what experts are calling China's dual strategy. And it's exactly what it sounds like, a deliberate plan to go down two roads at once. And in doing so, they're completely rewriting the rulebook for what coal even is in a modern grid.
Now this is the most crucial point to get. These new coal plants, they're not being built to run 24/7 like the old behemoth. Their job title has been officially demoted. They're being designed as a flexible backup reserve. Think of them less like the main engine and more like a national insurance policy, ready to kick on only when the sun goes down or the wind dies.
And this brings us to the technology that really makes this whole strategy possible. You see, this isn't a story of coal versus batteries. It's about a completely new energy pecking order, where batteries play this incredibly important role as the great enabler.
First off, we've got to clear up a huge misunderstanding that's out there. Batteries are not power plants. They don't generate a single watt of energy. They're storage tanks. The technologies that are actually replacing coal generation are solar and wind. Batteries are the critical piece of the puzzle that makes them reliable enough to run a country.
So this is the new power structure. Step 1, solar and wind do all the heavy lifting. They become the workhorses of the grid. Step 2, these massive battery farms act like the system's shock absorbers, soaking up all that cheap solar power at noon and then pumping it back out during the evening rush hour. And then, only then, as a last resort, does coal, the backup, get the call to fire up and fill in any leftover gaps.
But here's the catch, and it's a big one. On paper, it works great. In practice, there's a huge flaw. Powerful state-owned coal companies have these ironclad contracts, so grid operators are often forced to buy their expensive, dirty power, even when they don't need it. So what happens on a beautiful, sunny, windy day? You guessed it. They're told to shut off the clean, free energy from solar and wind, not the coal plant. The backup is literally getting in the way of the transition.
So, if the coal lobby is fighting back so hard, what makes this whole thing unstoppable? Well, the answer is always the same, isn't it? It comes down to pure economics. We've hit an irreversible financial tipping point, and it's all being driven by the insane price collapse of batteries and solar panels.
This number right here, $115 per kilowatt hour, this is the engine of the entire revolution. This massive price drop is basically the result of a brutal price war inside China, fueled by industrial overcapacity and the switch to cheaper LFP battery chemistry. It has made storing energy cheaper than anyone thought possible just a few years ago.
And at the exact same time, the cost of just generating power from the sun has completely fallen through the floor. Next year in China, it'll cost just $27 per megawatt hour to build a brand new, giant solar farm. That is way, way cheaper than building a new coal plant. But the truly mind-blowing part is what comes next. And this is the economic knockout punch for coal. It's called the coal cost crossover, and it changes everything. It means it is now becoming cheaper in China to build a brand new solar farm plus a brand new battery system than it is to just pay for the fuel to keep an old, already paid-for coal plant running. When building new and clean is cheaper than running old and dirty, the game is officially over.
So the economic logic is a done deal. But turning that math into actual steel, silicon, and lithium, that means building an entirely new kind of energy infrastructure, on a scale the world has literally never witnessed before. 180 gigawatts. Just try to wrap your head around that number. That's the official target for new battery storage China plans to build in just the next 3 years. To put that into perspective, that is about the same as the entire world's installed battery capacity at the start of this year. They're building a massive, nationwide energy sponge and in the process, redirecting the entire global battery supply chain right back to themselves.
And how they're building it is maybe even more telling. An absolutely overwhelming 92% of this new storage is being built as massive, centralized, grid-side batteries. So instead of making every wind and solar farm build its own little battery, China's just building colossal, state-controlled battery parks for the entire grid to use. It's a move for maximum efficiency, and more importantly, maximum control.
I mean, the individual projects themselves sound like something out of science fiction. We're talking about a solar farm out in Xinjiang that's so vast it practically creates its own weather. An 8-gigawatt solar project paired with a 5-gigawatt-hour battery. Even the world's biggest non-lithium battery is already up and running. These aren't just power plants anymore, these are the foundational cities of a new energy age.
So, this entire revolution has been running on the fuel of rock-bottom prices, all driven by Chinese overproduction. But that era, well, it's about to come to a very sudden and very deliberate end.
Yeah, according to industry analysts, we should all be bracing for a price hike of around 9% on solar and storage systems starting late next year. And this isn't some market fluke or a supply chain problem. No, this is a calculated policy decision coming straight from Beijing. So here's the playbook. First, Beijing is telling its own companies to cut polysilicon production to stop the domestic price war. Next, and this is the big one for the rest of us, they're getting rid of the 13% tax rebate for exporters. That's going to make Chinese clean tech instantly more expensive for everyone else. And finally, they're tightening their grip on the export of the tech itself, giving them a powerful new card to play in any trade dispute.
So when you put all of these pieces together on the board, the dual strategy, the unstoppable economics, the gigascale build-out, and now these coming price hikes, a very, very clear picture of China's energy endgame starts to emerge.
It's actually a pretty brilliant strategic loop. For years, China's giant export machines sold cheap solar panels and batteries to the world, mostly to us in the West. They then took the profits and the massive economies of scale from that global dominance and used it to make the same exact technology dirt cheap for their own internal build-out. In a way, the West basically subsidized the tech that's now powering China's energy revolution.
And that leaves us with one final and pretty critical question. China leveraged a global price war to build its 21st century grid at a steep discount. Now that their own system is well on its way, they're deliberately ending the era of rock-bottom prices. So what happens to the rest of the world's energy transition when the planet's dominant supplier decides it's time for everyone else to start paying full price?